I woke up to sunlight spilling through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my apartment, cutting across the white marble floors like golden ribbons. The city was already alive below me, but inside, everything was still. My birthday morning had begun quietly, just the way I wanted. A small cake from last night's dinner still sat on the counter, half-eaten, a single candle melted into a crooked shape. I was slipping into my favorite silk blouse, ivory, soft against my skin, when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I glanced at it absently, expecting a friend's happy birthday text. It wasn't that. It was Dad. Sold your laptop. Your sister needs a new phone. Be grateful. For a moment, the words didn't register. It was like seeing an old scar split open. My breath hitched, my fingers tightening around the edge of the blouse. I hadn't thought about that day in years. I'd spent so long building a life that proved I didn't need anyone's permission, anyone's pity. And yet, just like that, his message dragged me right back, to the cramped living room, to my younger self clutching that laptop like it was my future, begging him not to take it. I put the phone down gently like it might burn me. Then I caught my reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back looked calm, composed. No one would guess that today, on my birthday, I was reliving the day everything changed. I was 19 the day it happened. Freshman year, first semester, and that laptop wasn't just a machine, it was everything. My notes, my essays, my design projects, the part-time freelance gigs that helped me buy my own books, all of it lived inside that thin, silver rectangle. I remember walking into the living room and stopping dead. Dad was sitting on the couch, scrolling on his phone, looking completely unbothered. My laptop bag wasn't on the coffee table where I'd left it. "Where's my laptop?" I asked, already feeling a twist of panic in my chest. He didn't even look up. "Sold it." "What?" My voice cracked. "Your sister's phone broke," he said simply, like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. "She needs one for school. You can use the family computer for now. You'll be fine." I stood there, heart hammering, palms sweating. That family computer was ancient. It barely loaded email, let alone the programs I needed. "Dad, that laptop, it had everything. My projects, my work." He cut me off with a sigh. "Don't be dramatic, Emily. You should be grateful we're helping your sister. She's younger. She needs it more." I felt my throat tighten, hot tears stinging my eyes. My sister, Madison, walked in then, grinning, holding a shiny new phone like a trophy. She didn't even meet my eyes. Something inside me went very, very quiet. I walked to my room, shut the door, and slid down to the floor. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely breathe. It wasn't just the laptop. It was the message behind it, that my needs didn't matter, that I was expected to sacrifice because someone else's comfort was always more important. Later that night, my grandmother called to wish me good luck on finals. I didn't tell her what had happened, but she must have heard something in my voice because she said softly, "Baby, one day you'll stop waiting for them to choose you. You'll choose yourself. And that day will be the start of your real life." I held on to those words like a lifeline. The next morning, I started applying for extra shifts at the campus cafe and looked up how to rent a library laptop by the hour. If no one was going to fight for my future, I'd fight for it myself. Those first few months felt like living in two separate worlds. In one, I was the dutiful daughter who nodded along at dinner, smiled when Dad bragged about Madison's grades, and kept quiet when the topic of family sacrifices came up. In the other, I was a hustler. I spent every spare hour at the campus cafe, brewing coffee until my hands smelled permanently of espresso. The tips were small, but I saved every dollar. I rented library laptops by the hour, carrying flash drives like they were treasure chests. Sometimes I'd work until 2 a.m., my eyes burning under the harsh fluorescent lights. That's when I met Claire. She was a regular customer, sharp navy suits, hair always in a neat bun, the kind of woman who carried herself like she owned the room. One night, she noticed me still wiping down tables long after closing. "You're always here," she said, tilting her head. "Don't you have a life outside this cafe?" I laughed softly. This is my life right now. Something about that answer must have struck her, because the next day she slid me her business card. I run a small marketing firm. We need interns. Unpaid, but it could lead to something better. You seem determined. I stared at the card like it was a golden ticket. The internship was grueling. I'd leave the cafe, catch the bus across town, and work late nights formatting reports, learning graphic design basics, sitting in on strategy meetings. Half the time I felt invisible, the other half, terrified I'd mess up. But Claire noticed everything. One Friday evening, after I nailed a pitch deck for a client, she pulled me aside. You're good, Emily. Not just hardworking, good. Keep going. People will underestimate you, but that's their mistake. Use it. Her words fueled me. By the time I graduated, Claire offered me a full-time position. I took it quietly. I didn't post about it, didn't tell my parents. They still thought I was struggling to find my path, maybe even waiting for them to help me. 2 years later, I launched my own small agency, a leap of faith that nearly broke me. I worked out of my apartment, pitched clients from my kitchen table, and taught myself everything from invoicing to copywriting. Slowly it grew. I remember my first big win. A regional restaurant chain signed a 6-month retainer. I danced alone in my apartment that night, champagne straight from the bottle, tears streaming down my face. By 25, I had a team. By 27, we moved into a sleek downtown office with floor-to-ceiling windows, the very room I was standing in this morning. And still, my family knew nothing. I posted the occasional vague photo, a coffee cup, a sunset from the office, never showing the scale of what I'd built. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about protecting my peace. When Mom called a few weeks later to say they'd be stopping by while in town, my stomach tightened. It had been months since I'd seen them. Holidays were always my excuse to work. Just dinner, Mom said cheerfully. Your dad and Madison want to catch up. It'll be nice to see where you're living these days. For a moment, I almost offered to meet them at a restaurant. But then, something inside me shifted. Maybe it was the text on my birthday. Maybe it was the fact that I was tired of hiding. Sure, I said. Come by the office first. I'll be here late anyway. The day they arrived, I was waiting by the glass door, wearing a navy pantsuit that felt like armor. My team had already left, the space quiet except for the low hum of the air conditioning. Their footsteps echoed as they walked in. Madison was the first to stop. Wow, she whispered, taking in the high ceilings, the polished concrete floors, the wall of awards and framed campaigns. Dad's brows knitted. This is where you work? This is mine, I said simply. The words hung there. I led them toward my office, the centerpiece of the space. Sunlight streamed in from the windows, casting a glow on the shelves lined with books, photos, and a single object placed front and center. My first flash drive, still on its keychain, a relic of those library nights. Madison sank into one of the leather chairs, scrolling absently on her phone, then froze. Emily, she said slowly. You're the owner? Yes. I sat down across from them, calm but firm. I built this agency from scratch. Every client, every campaign, it started with me. I have a team now, 20 people. We manage accounts across the country. Dad's face went pale, then tight. Why didn't you ever tell us? I let out a quiet laugh. Would you have believed me? Silence. I stood and crossed to the window, looking out at the city. You sold my laptop, Dad. On my birthday. I begged you not to, and you told me to be grateful. That day, I realized no one was going to fight for my future but me. I turned back to face them. So I fought. I worked nights, borrowed laptops, lived off instant noodles, and built this piece by piece. You thought I was struggling, but I was building. Madison's eyes dropped to the floor. Mom was staring at the photos on my desk, me with my team at our first big launch event, me shaking hands with clients, me smiling like someone who had survived something and come out stronger. Dad finally spoke, his voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. I didn't know it meant that much to you. It wasn't just the laptop, I said softly. It was the message that my dreams could be taken away if someone else needed something more. I swore I'd never let that happen again. No one spoke for a long moment. The silence was thick, but not bitter. For the first time in years, I felt not angry, just in control. I let the silence stretch a little longer, feeling the weight of the moment settle over all of us. For years, I had imagined this confrontation 1,000 different ways, screaming, crying, demanding apologies. But standing here now, surrounded by the life I'd built, I didn't need to raise my voice. You wanted to see where I live, what I've been doing, I said, my tone even. Now you have. But this isn't just a tour. This is a choice. Madison's head jerked up. A choice? Yes. I walked back to my desk and leaned against it. If we're going to be in each other's lives, things have to change. I'm not the girl you can dismiss, or the one you can take from because you think she'll always be fine. Dad looked like he wanted to argue, but I held up a hand. This isn't about money. I'm not asking for repayment, but I do want respect, starting with acknowledgement. I turned to him first. Dad, you need to understand what that decision cost me. Not just financially, emotionally. If you can't admit it was wrong, then we have nothing to talk about. He swallowed, his jaw working. I see that now, he said finally. It was wrong. I should have asked you. I should have listened. A strange mix of pain and relief rippled through me. Then I looked at Madison. And you've grown up thinking everyone will sacrifice, so you don't have to. That ends today. If you want my help, and I'm willing to help you figure out your career, your goals, you have to earn it. No more expecting things to just be handed to you. Madison shifted uncomfortably. I didn't realize. I know you didn't, I said gently, but you do now. Do something that's yours. Something that makes you proud, even if no one else sees it. You deserve that. Finally, I turned to Mom. Her eyes were wet. Mom, you don't have to stay quiet anymore. When something isn't fair, say it. I would have given anything to hear you speak up for me that day. Don't let that silence keep repeating itself. She nodded slowly, tears slipping down her cheeks. This is my line, I said, my voice firm but not unkind. You are welcome in my life, but only if we build it on respect, not guilt, not obligation, and definitely not favoritism. I'm not going back to that girl sitting on the floor, begging someone to see her worth. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Madison stood, slipping her phone into her pocket. I can do that, she said quietly. I can try. Dad gave a stiff nod. So can I. And just like that, the balance shifted. The weeks that followed surprised me. At first, I half expected the old patterns to creep back in. Dad brushing off my words, Madison asking for favors like nothing had changed. But something was different this time. Maybe it was seeing the proof of my life. Maybe it was the fact that I hadn't begged or shouted, just drawn my line in the sand. Madison started texting me updates, not about drama or new purchases, but about the online course she'd enrolled in for digital photography. She sent me her first few photos shyly, as if waiting for me to laugh. I didn't. I printed one and framed it in the office lobby. Dad called one evening just to ask how a campaign was going. Not to give advice, not to criticize, just to listen. The first time, I was so startled I almost didn't answer. The second time, I smiled as soon as I saw his name on the screen. And Mom, she surprised me most of all. At Thanksgiving, when Dad made a comment about Madison's bad spending habits, Mom spoke up, gently but firmly, and suggested they talk about budgeting together instead of shaming her. I caught her eye across the table, and she gave me the smallest nod. One evening, after a long day at work, I found myself sitting at my desk, looking at that old flash drive. I picked it up, turning it over in my hand. The plastic was scratched, the keyring rusted, but it still felt like a piece of my backbone. My grandmother's voice echoed in my mind. One day you'll stop waiting for them to choose you. You'll choose yourself. She had been right. I slipped the flash drive into a small glass case and set it back on the shelf. Not as a reminder of the pain, but as proof that it had led me here, to this office, this life, this version of myself. When I left that night, the city lights were bright against the sky, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel heavy. I felt whole. And as I locked the door behind me, I said it out loud, just for me. They sold my laptop to silence me, but it only powered me into the woman I was always meant to be.